Today's podcast is brought to you by Reality Sports Online, a powerful fantasy platform that lets you build and manage your fantasy team like a real-life GM. The platform features the revolutionary free agency auction room and has tons of other cool features like a rookie draft, franchise tags, automated contract and salary cap functionality, and much, much more. Visit realitysportsonline.com today and use the promo code BALLERS for 10% off the platform fee.
To the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
I knew it was coming, and it still surprised me. I was like, "What? This is not the right music." Oh yeah, it is the right music.
And it's great because Mike did it himself.
You're darn tootin'.
So when you hear incredible guitar riffs on the show, it is
like
always
the one playing right now.
It was always Mike, and so we have a little Game of Thrones action. We won't give you any spoilers on the show. We just thought it was an appropriate introduction to the Tuesday, April 22nd or 26th, April 26th show after the debut of Game of Thrones last night, and it will be the topic we discuss on the show after the show on YouTube. So if you want a little bit of Game of Thrones talk, then you'll want to go to YouTube and check that out. Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Andy Holloway here with Jason Moore.
How's it going, everybody?
Mike, the Fantasy Hitman Wright, back from Hawaii.
It's good to be back, America.
Scuba to back.
It is a shame
Is that what that sounded like?
Scuba to back.
He learned some new things in Hawaii. It's a
lot of scat
freewheeling.
Do you know why he came back, Andy?
The
Because
wife had too much.
This week is the NFL draft. He came back.
That's the only reason I would return from Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, it actually was.
It's here.
It's
happening.
I was moving.
You were on the way out. You would have been Skyping in. Scatter be back, everyone. Well, we've got a good show for the listeners today, for the Foot Clan. We got Matthew Freedman on the show.
Yes.
From Fantasy Labs and RotoViz. We're talking, this is our, really the right show to do a bit of a rookie preview. And so we're going to talk through some of the guys to pay attention to. For whatever reason, Jason's really made this point. This season's crop has some really talented players that will make fantasy impacts, but it just doesn't have the feeling of, what's the right word for it? Like a loaded weapon. It just seems like there's a couple good bullets, and we're not sure if anybody else is going to pan out in the way we want.
This is a six-shooter, and the last couple of years have been machine guns where you just keep.
I was going to go a Nerf gun with tax.
Okay.
And the reality is,
I think do a little damage, a little bit.
I think we'll be wrong. I mean, I think ultimately we'll be wrong. There will be very high impact players. The buzz around them isn't there, which means it doesn't translate to Dynasty League drafts and rookie drafts in the same way the past few years have. But we're going to go through the big names today, talk with Matthew Freedman, who knows his stuff about rookies and the NFL draft. We've got some news to break, a lot of big-time news, and so I'm excited about that. And what else do we got going on? We got some mailbag on the show today.
Absolutely.
And so what else should we talk about here at the top? We've got the awards going on right now. So tell the people about podcastawards.com.
So podcastawards.com, they are in the nomination period, and we really appreciate We've had great support from the Foot Clan, and we got to make a tiny little push here to finish it strong. Podcastawards.com, nominate us for sports and People's Choice, and hopefully we get the nomination through, and then we'll let everyone else. We'll give updates as soon as we get them.
And another exciting bit of news.
We have been working super hard, and our draft kit. We've been talking about the Ultimate Draft Kit. It is now available for pre-order. So if you want to go and pre-order it on our website, you can actually go to ultimatedraftkit.com. And if you get it now, if you get it before we release it, which it should be coming out in June, the 1st of June, you'll save $5 right now.
It's a good deal.
This was basically the reason this exists is because last year we had so many people asking for so many specific things.
A lot of the times it was, where is your draft kit?
Right.
It wasn't just, can you make one? It was, hey, where is it? Where do I get your draft kit? And then we said,
So if you want to be able, I mean, this is the thing, like, I'm building for me. I want to take this into my draft and have every specific number and things that I care about that I use when I draft, and we're making that available. So go to the website, ultimatedraftkit.com.
So, quick question of the day, guys. Josh Norman, over the week, kind of incredible.
Madness.
You don't generally see this. Imagine, one of the best players in the league at the cornerback position, certainly in the top echelon here, wanted big money from Carolina, ends up being franchise tagged, and the tag is rescinded, and he's out the door. And it happened really fast. And now the trickle down of the impact on fantasy players is here. And so that's the question I have for you. Josh Norman is gone. He has left the Panthers. That wonderful defense is now impacted. Julio Jones loses Norman in the division. Odell Beckham Jr. picks up Norman in his division.
Delightful.
So I guess if you haven't heard, he signed a very lucrative contract offer with a team that likes to give them, the Washington Redskins.
Dan Snyder saw what Miami was doing. He's like, whoa. I am the king of the offseason. The king.
You remember Albert Hainsworth? That was me.
I feel like Snyder's been in a recovery group for excess spending, and he did so well, right? Like during the free agent period, and then this out of left field, Josh Norman just drops into the picture, and he can't, he didn't call his sponsor.
He got his day one chip.
He didn't call his sponsor.
He's back on it.
So Josh Norman's a Redskin. So who do you think this impacts the most? Other than,
I think you got to start with those two main guys, Odell Beckham Jr. and Julio Jones. It is so fascinating that you have those two guys, which I think most people have them as the number 2 and number 3 wide receiver, but in different orders. And that was prior to this news. Well, now you have 4 games of impact of Josh Norman. So the question is,
4 games?
Well, like a 4-game swing. You've
Sides?
got 2 less for Julio and 2 more for Odell Beckham. Does that sway you to put – because for me in my rankings, I had Odell Beckham Jr. ahead of Julio Jones. Should that change? And for me, and I'm really interested in your guys' take, I'm not changing it. I think it makes Julio a little bit better, but I don't think that overtakes it. I don't think it very largely impacts Odell Beckham, because one of the things we have to keep in mind with Norman is that Norman was not he's not one of those guys that you put on their number 1 guy and lock him down with man coverage. He
played outside.
Yeah, and
he didn't come over to the slot. He did a little bit. He did a little bit. But
normally he was a zone scheme outside guy, and he had great. So it is good that Washington Redskins, they have a good system style-wise for him. That's good, but they don't have the pieces around him to make him be as valuable there as he was for the Carolina Panthers. So I'm still sticking with Odell Beckham and then Julio as number 3.
Let me say this. It may seem like an extreme reaction to even consider that, right? It's 2 games during the year. Last year, however, you had Julio Jones, who ended up with 2 games against Carolina at the end of the year specifically, where it did affect the playoff run and his performance. Now, he had 1 big game against Norman and 1 lower game. I want to give you guys some numbers. The difference, these are big-time wide receivers that played against Norman last year. Brandon Cooks actually put up 1.5 points per game more in those
Panthers?
matchups.
More than
against
his
the
average.
Panthers, more than his average. Mike Evans was down 3 points. Julio ended up a 1.5. And then Odell Beckham Jr., Des Bryant, and Jordan Mathews, all the division mates now of Josh Norman, -1, -4, -7.
Yeah,
Is that? I mean,
I was very happy to hear Jason say it doesn't change things, because it doesn't change it for me either. Julio.
But it gives us something else to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Julio was my number 2 in fairness, and Beckham's my 3. But however, if Beckham was my 2, it wouldn't be changing because of this. I'm not. It's whatever. But it would. What's nice is it is now must-watch television.
Oh, that's
because
so
twice
great.
a year.
If you did not see the Panthers-Giants game where Beckham eventually earned himself a suspension, I expect cooler heads to prevail this time, but there's the chance.
That's going to be – and every eyeball of every NFL fan is going to be watching those games specifically for that. Can you imagine just I'm looking forward to the commercials advertising that game coming up. There's NFL rule changes that are being tested just because of that game. It's going to be awesome.
Cooler heads prevail for guys like that until about play 3. And when one guy beats the other one at something, then watch out.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good transition. Let's jump into the rest of the news.
News and notes from around the league.
That one was quiet.
Well, no, you're talking about the drop?
Yeah.
That's because it wasn't in this rack yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. We're making some tech changes.
Mike has insisted that like every form of my mind is telling you no, my body's telling me yes, is in our drop board. So we're
things are
expanding
important.
it. No wacky DJs over here, Mike.
No.
I'm in control.
All right.
And maybe a little bit of Jason, but you can't be trusted. That's for sure.
That's fair.
Hey, big news this morning. The U.S. Appeals Court has reinstated the suspension for Tom Brady. We talked about it on the show about 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago when we talked quarterbacks. The fact that it's lingering there in the background for Tom Brady. And here it is. As of right now, he is out those first 4 weeks.
This makes a huge, huge difference. He should not be drafted as, assuming that this stands and he misses the first 4 games of the season. That's a quarter of your season. You cannot draft a guy in the first 6 or 7 rounds. So if you're thinking about Tom Brady, hey, if he drops to the 10th round and you want a guy that's, you could stash on your bench for when he comes back,
There's no
great.
way.
But that's the point. There's no way. People will be taking him in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. And when you're taking one of those round picks that are valuable to a fantasy team, if you're drafting a wide receiver, a running back, whatever, and saying, hey, I'm going to start the first quarter of the season, and that's not even including playoffs, so more than that, the first third of your season to make the playoffs, well, great. Enjoy Tom Brady when he's back and you're out of the playoffs.
How does this impact Gronk?
I think Gronk will be okay. He'll survive. The bigger question to me is Julian Edelman, Deion Lewis, and Chris Hogan, who's one of my favorite sleepers, which, I mean, now you're just going into a deeper slumber with Hogan because you got to wait a while for Brady to be there. Because is there any way that this gets overturned now? Because it was a U.S. appeals court says, we deny you. The NFL can suspend you for this. Is there any way that Goodell changes his mind and says, okay, well, we'll drop it to 2 or something?
Not if he gets my letter on behalf of all Cardinal fans for week 1 of the season.
You're okay with the 1-game suspension?
I wrote in. I said, you can change it, but game 1 you should probably miss on Sunday Night Football. Well, you told me the bittersweet reality as a Cardinal fan is you didn't want to face Brady, but you wanted to go to that game on Sunday Night Football.
I did.
To debut first game of the year. All right, let's move on here to much more important news. Adam Schefter reporting some teams are interested in Nick Foles.
Whoa. Several. How dare you? This is a quote.
Are interested in Nick Foles.
And I believe I called Adam and I was like, whoa, what are those teams? And they are all from the CFL.
CFL teams are
very interested in Nick Foles.
This is not news. All right, let's move on. The Eagles made a huge trade last week, and we're going to talk to Matthew Freedman of RotoViz about Carson Wentz and Goff, those presumptive first 2 picks, and the order seems to be Goff and then Wentz, but we don't know for sure. I actually read a report this morning. The NFL is trying to tell the Rams to keep quiet about their selection in order to build speculation and anticipation for the draft. That being said, the Eagles traded to get a quarterback. This has turned into a problem now because Bradford has come out today. Sam Bradford, Sammy Biscuits, an unhappy biscuit.
Oh, that's not good. He's
a
stale.
mad biscuit.
The
a
biscuits
stale
are
biscuit.
stale.
There it is. I was searching for the right food reference. He wants out of Philadelphia, which I believe I made a bet with you, Jason, that
wait, what?
I forgot about
What
this.
bet is
Yeah.
it?
I made a bet with him because he thought Bradford would just be locked and loaded as the quarterback, and I said I thought Wentz would get the job before week 10. Well, week 1's before week 10, so we'll see what happens if Bradford leaves town. It's always
but
good
have you seen what the Eagles have said?
Bradford's my starter. I'm surprised.
Exactly.
Woo.
No, I'm just saying they wanted Wentz to go behind Bradford and sit.
They want someone to trade for Sam Bradford.
This is one of those, I am just shocked he would ever say this.
What I desperately want is a draft day, the movie style thing where a team just gives up everything and then they end up drafting the player that they had originally thought, because on draft day he moves up to the number 1 spot and he still takes the defensive player.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, I want video of our
with the
listeners.
number 2 pick, Paxton Lynch.
Oh no, Cleveland's not drafting number 2. So the Eagles moved up, the Browns moved back. What this does mean is that Ezekiel Elliott is not heading to Philadelphia, at least barring some insanity, because they don't have any picks left. So I'm going to say it. Official.
Yeah.
Andy Holloway reporting the Eagles will not select Ezekiel Elliott.
Well done.
That is huge news.
It is for Ryan Mathews.
For Ryan Mathews, because the way that their draft picks, they give up so much in the draft that they don't have a second round that they can use on a running back. They are not drafting a running back to come in here and supplant Ryan Mathews. And I think that when you look at their roster and you decide, hey, I'm going to make this move, you say, okay, we might have wanted to have another running back come in, but we're set there if we need to be. If we can rely on Ryan Mathews and have him be a viable starter. He's been a great starter many other years for San Diego. So he is, I think, one of the players that got the best value out of these big move trades is actually Ryan Mathews. I was in the middle of an MFL 10 draft when that news broke, and I was like, oh, I got to see if Ryan Mathews is available because I need him now.
Did you get him?
I did not. He was like the next pick, though.
All right. And so the Browns ended up with a haul. They got the number 8 pick, so only moved back 6 picks. They got, what did they get? A first rounder next year, the number 77 pick, the 3rd rounder this year, the 4th rounder,
It's insane.
and a 2nd rounder next year as well.
It's
so
madness.
it's a lot. And we'll talk to Matthew Freedman about that.
It is
on the show
not
today
going
in
to
just a
work
minute.
out well for those two teams. I don't believe that it's going to work out well
For those
draft
two,
them.
I think the Browns, that was a great
Well, the
move.
two being
No,
the
no,
two
no,
that
no.
traded up
Oh,
for
Correct.
quarterback.
The two that traded up. I don't think so. We'll get Matthew Freedman's opinion on these rookies in just a second. But before we get to that great interview, we want to remind everybody about one of our favorite sponsors of this show, Pristine Auction. Look, if you are looking for any cool gifts, any memorabilia for your house, anything, we had a friend that was just moving to San Diego, a close friend of all three of ours. Where did we go to get him something awesome? We got him a signed Keenan Allen jersey from Pristine Auction. All of their stuff is verified. We have met these guys. We have seen their warehouse.
Stand-up guys.
Awesome dudes there. This is a company you want to work with. Everything is completely verified. And they've got stuff on there that is absolutely incredible. I saw they've got an NFL Hall of Fame helmet on their full size that has 37 signatures on there. Guys like Johnny Unitas and Dan Marino and Joe Montana and just a billion of them.
And it's not just sports. So we had a Twitter follower showed us they got some Breaking Bad memorabilia. And it's just outstanding stuff.
Yeah, so go to Pristine Auction. That's Pristine auction.com, and you could get the best deals imaginable on that stuff.
All right, so let's go ahead and take some time. Let's go over the rookies. Let's talk rookies. We got the draft right here, and bring in Matthew Freedman.
You talking to me?
The fantasy footballers are excited to bring in Matthew Freedman, writer for Fantasy Labs and the producer of the RotoViz podcast. How are you doing this fine day, Matthew?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me, guys.
And we brought Freedman on here to talk some prospects. I don't know if
I just found out the draft's this week.
Yes,
I
I
had
don't
no
know
idea.
if you know this, but there's an NFL draft this Thursday.
I've heard it's sort of like Christmas time for all of us. Like really, like I prefer the draft to watching the Super Bowl. Like that is how excited I get about this time of year.
Really?
That's
Yeah.
about how I feel about the what kind of dip is that you make, Mike?
Oh, the sausage dip?
Yeah, Mike
Yes.
makes a sausage dip for the draft every year, and we start to associate that with
and
the NFL draft.
And I mean, we had the Game of Thrones premiere. I don't know if you're a Thrones watcher, but you combine Thrones premiere and the draft, and it's just an
a good
incredible
week. It's a good week.
Yeah, it is a great week. It's like the Pavlovian response. Anytime like we get around this time of the year, like my body just starts like aching for the NFL draft.
All right, so we'll jump right into some wide receivers, and I'll be referencing from RotoViz your guys' pre-draft rookie rankings, and there's for I guess probably most of the fantasy community, there's a bit of a shock at the top here. Corey Coleman is actually your guys' number one receiver. Was he your number one, or are you a Laquon Treadwell guy? What are your thoughts on the number one guy this year?
Yeah, so I played college football DFS last year, so I'm inherently going to be a little bit biased towards Corey Coleman and also Josh Doxson because he was fantastic in DFS and I went to TCU. But Corey Coleman, for me, is the number one receiver, and it's not because I think that Laquon Treadwell doesn't have potential. I think he will be a very solid NFL player. It's just that Corey Coleman was so productive in a variety of ways at Baylor as a return man, as a runner, then also as a receiver, of course. And, decent size. He's not a small guy. He's not big, but he is definitely fast enough to compensate for anything he lacks in size. So I think it's the athleticism that he has and the fact that he had 2 outstanding seasons that really gives him the edge for me over Treadwell.
So how do you really feel about Treadwell? Because he's an interesting guy. He's kind of polarizing the draft community right now, where some people have him as the second overall rookie pick. Some people are starting to really fade him because of the kind of like the metrics people, where he really didn't show up how most people want during combine drills. Are you off of Treadwell at all, or you're still perfectly fine with him?
Yeah, I like him. It's the type of situation where in the metrics community, I'm kind of on the rare side in that there are certain metrics that don't bother me as much as others. And so Treadwell, as long as he's big, and Treadwell is huge, I kind of don't care as much about athleticism because we have seen guys who are sufficiently sized, who aren't athletic, who still end up having very good NFL careers. Anquan Boldin being the one that everyone points to, but I think Keenan Allen could be another guy, and he's not nearly as big as Treadwell. So I think he won't be a guy who has multiple seasons of wide receiver 1 production, but I think he could be a very solid wide receiver 2 for a lot of years.
Let me ask you this, and I agree with you about the size of Treadwell and the impact he can make. What do you think the best fit for those two guys is in the first round?
In terms of teams that they would go to?
Yeah, for Coleman and for Treadwell. Where do you think their best fit is? Because so much of fantasy and the impact they're going to make is going to be where they drop to, who they're matched up with, the circumstances in those situations. Who do you think they would do best on?
Yeah, that's interesting. So for me, it's not so much a matter of scheme fit. I'm not a football guy in that way in terms of thinking of like, well, this is an X, a Y, or a Z receiver, and these are the teams that really like to use those types of receivers in this way. For me, it's a matter of kind of opportunity. How quickly will a guy get on the field? So I like to look for places where guys have an immediate chance of getting production. San Francisco automatically comes to mind, although it's a question of whether you want to take the Chip Kelly plunge for like a third year in a row on a rookie wide receiver. But there is a lot of opportunity there, a lot of missing targets. And then I think, honestly, New England is really intriguing to me because they have the smaller receiver. They obviously have a great tight end, but it would be great for them to have a bigger bodied guy there. So Laquon Treadwell, obviously he's not going to go there because the Patriots don't have a first round pick.
Right.
But I think like if they were ever to move up, right, and they have some draft picks where they could do that, I think he would be an interesting guy, especially if the teams in the early part of the first round are a little low on him. And so if he fades, that would be really intriguing. But San Francisco is a place that is really interesting because there are just so many available targets there.
And who are, maybe it's just one guy, maybe it's a couple guys, who are the wide receivers that you have your eye on that they're not the super top, they're not the super sexy names like the Doxsons and the Colemans? Who's a guy that you're watching, and if he lands in the right spot, you're going to be all over him?
Sure. So I will give you two guys. One is Leonte Carroo, who I think probably deserves to be a low first-round pick, but will probably go in the second or third rounds. He was fantastically productive at Rutgers, which isn't a school that produces a lot of wide receiver production. He did it for 2 straight years as a junior and a senior. He's sufficiently big at 211 pounds, but he ran a 4.50 40 time, so he has good athleticism to go with his size. So if he goes to a team that looks like it has some sort of opening, I will be very enthusiastic about him. And then a really deep sleeper is Jakeem Grant from Texas Tech University, a very underrated guy, versatile, sort of like a discounted Tavon Austin. And of course, he had that fantastic pro day performance where he ran anywhere from a 4.1 flat to a 4.34, right? Like that 4.1 flat time just seems crazy, and it is, but even a 4.34 is sufficiently fast for a guy who's just a burner, right? And he's 165 pounds. He's probably not going to be the type of guy who makes a big impact, but I think he will stick on a team as a return man. He was an all-pro return man at Texas Tech. He has sort of like J.J. Nelson potential. I could see him being the type of guy who one game randomly scores 2 touchdowns and wins someone $1 million.
Winning $1 million sounds pretty good. So before we switch gears to the running backs, I actually have a question based on kind of my feelings, if you will.
Oh, this is not good.
No, we're not. 2 years ago, it seemed like going into the draft, before the NFL draft happened, we knew, man, that was a wide receiver. There were so many. That was the wide receiver draft from a fantasy perspective of guys that are going to make an impact. And then going into last year, it seemed like running backs were really deeper than they had been in that class for a couple of years. This year, I feel like I'm very disappointed. I'm not sure if it's because of these last 2 years or if this class, this crop of rookies is, from the offensive side of the ball, is a little bit less talented than the year-to-year crop. So how do you feel about, in a dynasty league type of setting, this incoming group of rookies, are they a little bit a cut below the last couple of years?
Yeah, you nailed it. Absolutely right. We've gotten spoiled the last 2 years. 2 years ago because of the wide receivers and last year because of the running backs. This year, there's nothing wrong with the guys, especially at the top, right? So if you have a first-round pick, you have a very good chance of getting someone who could contribute to your team. But after that, this class just doesn't have the depth of those previous 2 classes. So yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's not that there's anything really wrong with this class. It's just that in comparison to the previous 2 years, there isn't the depth there. You don't want to be comfortable with a second-round pick thinking that you can get a wide receiver who can contribute, because it's not likely to happen this year.
Right.
All right, so let's move it over to the running backs. I think we'll just get this out of the way. Ezekiel Elliott is your number 1, I assume, or is that a bad assumption?
No, he is, but it's by a hair. I really like Derrick Henry a lot.
Interesting. Okay, so let's move it over to Derrick Henry. What do you foresee about him? Because he's kind of like Treadwell is polarizing. Henry, there's a lot of people who think there's just no way he can translate to the pros. So what do you like about him?
Oh man, it's just I like to I guess gamble on players that we've never seen anything like before, and that's sort of what Henry is. But I mean, we've seen like glimpses of something similar to him. I mean, the fact is that big guys who are athletically talented, who are productive, who are coming from Power 5 conferences, right? Like those guys tend not to fail in the NFL. So he's a guy that I feel very comfortable with, and any other class, right? He would be my number 1. Of course, Ezekiel Elliott is also a big guy who's very productive and very athletic. So I love both of those guys. I would be comfortable getting either one of them if I had a top 2 pick.
And there's been a lot of talk about Henry. It's kind of funny, coming out of Alabama, could end up in Cleveland again. Cleveland has no depth at the wide receiver position.
The groans.
And maybe we'll see a repeat of this, Trent Richardson. I mean, it's hard to bring his name up now without kind of making a weird face, but
he had a good rookie year.
His first year he had double-digit touchdowns. High volume is kind of what I'm looking at there, where you get a chance to to hand the ball to Henry and just see what happens. I mean, I wouldn't be extremely excited about the destination, but I would be about the carry total he would get in Cleveland.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing with the running back position is, like, no matter how we want to evaluate it, so much just comes down to the number of times per game a team is willing to give the ball to that guy. And Derrick Henry is built to get the ball a lot. And I think the team that drafts him will draft him with that in mind. They will want to give him the ball. So I think he has an exceptional opportunity in the NFL. Cleveland would be a very sad destination. But I mean, really, I think no matter where he goes, he will have that opportunity right away to establish himself as a workhorse.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of have to give him that role if you invest the pick in him. So last year, Mike and myself, before the NFL draft, we fell in love with David Johnson just from his combine drills videos, from his college tape. We were really loving David Johnson, and if you don't know, we actually live in Arizona, so this was a great day when the draft came around.
It's fantastic,
and we grabbed him. This year, I'm wanting to know. Like, honestly, I don't have a guy that I look at that's a little bit deeper, that's like, man, he's just got the
Jumping off the
tools.
page.
Yeah, that jumps off the page. I don't have a guy I'm really excited about at running back position, but is there somebody that I should have? Do you see someone that you're like, man, if the cards fell right and the opportunity came, that he's got the talent to explode in the NFL?
Yeah, and I have to say, I love David Johnson. There was a lot of displeasure about him before the draft because, converted wide receiver, a guy who kind of runs upright and can't, run like a big guy, doesn't run between the tackles, all of that stuff. And there's another guy who is actually very similar, and that's CJ Prosise.
Yeah.
And he's big.
Mike likes CJ Prosise.
I do.
Yeah, he's big like David Johnson. He's fast like David Johnson. He's a receiver, right? He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He doesn't have the collegiate production that David Johnson had. But the thing that's really cool about Prosise is that he converted from wide receiver just this last year. And in his first year, not even first year, his first months of playing the running back position, he became the starter and was very productive at Notre Dame. So he has like the big things that you look for when identifying guys who could explode in the NFL. So I think if there is a David Johnson type of player in this draft, it's Prosise, and Prosise will probably go in that same draft range, like end of the third round, beginning of the fourth round, that general range.
My only concern with Prosise is the team that drafts him and what they're expecting out of him. I mean, I guess in David Johnson's case, you had the same thing where complimentary back that like you said, exploded and became something when Chris Johnson got hurt. I'm worried that Prosise will get drafted and then thrown into a role similar to Duke Johnson in terms of a complimentary back. Is that something that you foresee as well?
No, because the difference is that Duke Johnson is a smaller guy, and that's why I like to take my shots on bigger guys. I think one way or another, they tend to get their opportunities, either because they're bigger and they can get more yards, or because they're just healthier and they outlast the smaller guy in a committee.
And so before we jump over to the tight ends, what's the sleeper? Who's your guy from the running back crop?
Oh man, I mean, it's a really weird year where I think there isn't anyone who really entices me at the running back position as like a deep sleeper. I mean, I guess you could say Marshaun Coprich from Southern Illinois, highly productive at a small school, was invited to the combine, and that's actually a really significant thing. The guys who are invited to the combines from small schools, they have just a better chance of NFL success. He's not a big guy. He's kind of MJD sized, like around 208 pounds, but like 5'7". But he ran under a 4.5 40 time. So he has potential because of his production and because he's big enough and fast enough, but I just don't think he's going to get the opportunity.
Yeah, that's fair. So talking about tight ends, we knew most fantasy players they understand, a tight end's not really going to give you anything year one. And I honestly haven't really heard much strong buzz around any one particular guy. But are there any tight ends that you have at least a level of excitement for this year?
Oh man, it's a bad year. It's a bad year for tight ends. I mean, and you look at quarterback too. I'd say it's not a great year. But one guy who is kind of flying under the radar is Tyler Higbee from Western Kentucky. He was basically putting up wide receiver type of numbers last year before he got injured. But he's, got good size, 6'5", 6'6", 250, 260 pounds. I could see him being the type of guy who maybe gets drafted in the third or fourth round, sticks around a roster for a couple of years, and then gets a shot because he's sort of like an all-purpose type of player who's a better receiver than anyone thinks. At the same time, that's not really very exciting. You know what I mean? So, this is just the type of year where I would avoid tight end in general.
Yeah, I agree. When you don't hear anything about tight ends, it's usually because there's just not an impact player. So let me ask you the most common and easiest question that you'll get. Jared Goff or Carson Wentz?
I would do neither.
All right, so who's your
Isn't that the worst part about the NFL draft? I mean, it's like even if it's not a strong crop of guys,
You have to take
you
one.
have to take one, and whoever's at the top of that list just becomes on the same level as guys in years past.
I think what Matthew Freedman is really saying here is he's saying that I made a great move to trade down in this year's draft and get a first-round pick in my dynasty.
in your rookie
yes.
draft.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So you have to make a choice, Goff or Wentz. We're putting you on the spot.
I would go with Goff, but I mean, here's the thing about Wentz. He's coming from a smaller school, and granted, it was a school that was, a powerhouse. But Wentz wasn't the starter for a sustained length of time. He was the starter really for only a little more than a season and a half. If there's a guy coming from a small school, you have to see more than 2 seasons worth of outstanding production to feel confident that he can be a decent quarterback in the NFL. That's not even taking into account that this is the guy that people are talking about as the #1 overall pick, which just sounds insane to me, right? This guy is not even Joe Flacco. Goff, on the other hand,
nobody is Joe Flacco.
Well, I guess that's true. For good and for bad, nobody is Joe Flacco. Goff, on the other hand, is coming from a Power 5 conference. He did show improvement throughout his college career. His numbers aren't bad, but the thing is, and this is maybe more of a gut feeling and just a bias that I have. I look at him and he just strikes me as the Pac-12 quarterback that's like Mark Sanchez or Matt Barkley and not Andrew Luck.
Thank you so much for saying that. It's weird because we've had the debate here, obviously in the studio, about these different guys, and I'm more on the Wentz side, not super excitedly, but just compared to Goff. But that's the same feeling that I have from him, is that you're getting a guy, a California kid, the next Leinart-like impact in the NFL. And I watched a lot of Pac-12 football, and it wasn't that he couldn't make the throws. It was just that I never saw him do something that made me think he was going to be a special quarterback at the next level. And so, for better or for worse, all the numbers can come out and people can be all about him, but that feeling is persisting with me and thinking that Goff's just not going to be special.
Yeah, I think he would be a very nice 2nd-round pick.
Yeah.
But he's he's going to
try #1,
#2 pick. Yeah, #2 or #1. I mean, it's insane that these two guys are being compared to the 2 quarterbacks we had last year.
Right. And look at the hauls given up just to get up into those positions, to basically invest the next 3 or 4 years into seeing if they are, which is welcome to the NFL, I guess.
I mean, the thing that's so crazy is that the Rams, you think they should know better. They were the ones that got all of those picks from trading the rights to get RG3. I mean, it's almost like this situation where they looked at what they got with all of those picks and they were like, you know what? We really didn't do all that much with those picks. Let's try trading away a lot of picks and see if that works.
They had the LA sunglasses on. They're ready to make a splash. And I guess we can be surprised, right?
I get with Jeff Fisher, who knows?
8-8.
Yeah.
Yes. 7-9. That's even feasible. That will get the job done.
Oh man. So that been a great conversation here with Matthew Freedman. Like we said, writer for Fantasy Labs, producer of the RotoViz podcast. Is there anything else that you think the people should know about, Matthew?
Yeah, so just at Fantasy Labs, we are full on with the Major League Baseball season. We have a lot of outstanding advanced data that no one else has access to except for, basically the MLB teams. So you can look at pitching velocity, batted ball distance, all that stuff. And then at RotoViz, we have just launched a new podcast called Fantasyland, which is sort of like an NPR or Gimlet style show that looks at things touching on fantasy sports, but the things that you don't normally think about. So the first episode was on spreadsheets. The second episode was on all of the women in the industry who are really outstanding. And then our third episode is going to be on Roto World and its dominance within the fantasy industry.
And I give my personal seal of approval. I had tweeted out about Fantasyland. It's just the production is spectacular, and the content is engaging, and the way the show is put together is spectacular. That's how we got connected with Freedman. We had already known about him, but that's just personally got us connected. So check out Fantasyland, the podcast, and it was great talking to you, Matthew. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, special thanks to Matthew Freedman for joining us on the show. I think that was some good context for fantasy owners heading into the draft. The lay of the land. If you're not in a dynasty league, obviously the impact is even smaller to you. You're not necessarily doing a rookie draft where you're paying attention to just those big names, the sleeper names. A lot of these guys are not going to be drafted in your standard redraft league, but the big names will be. And some of these guys, Coleman, that Freeman mentioned, is somebody that if he lands in the right spot, especially, he could make a year one impact. We saw the potential, even if we don't like the class, the potential for rookies at the wide receiver position to sweep the fantasy football landscape. I mean, you had, 13 different rookie wide receivers 2 years ago that made an impact?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was incredible. So the potential's there. The precedent is there, not the prediction.
Yeah,
There's a difference between them.
And I think that's one of the big problems, though, is that going into that draft, we saw the talent was really different. And coming into this year's draft, you compare the players, the film, the tape, the metrics against those guys is just not the same.
So we're looking forward to finding out where these guys go. It's going to be fun. I'm sure there will be some draft day trades we'll be talking about very soon as well. And we are efforting some special guests, some other guests to come on the show over the next couple of weeks.
We're trying.
That I think you'll be very pleased with. I think you'll give your stamp of approval. So before we get into the mailbag, I do want to remind you about the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. A lot has been changing on the website. Go check it out. There is the draft kit up there. We've got a Q&A up there now where you can actually just ask questions and have other listeners, other fantasy football fans answer questions. It's all free on the website. We got our rankings up there. We're constantly updating those. And so a lot has been changing. We're going to start publishing some articles. It's only April 25th, but when the draft hits, it's just like go time. It's ready. It's ready time.
It's when you engage.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and take a few minutes here, answer some listener questions. You can submit those on the website as well. Just go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, click the submit a question button. You can also go to Twitter at the FF Ballers, connect to us there. And so we do our very best to be available as often as we can while also sleeping occasionally.
Mailbag.
Mailbag! All right, let's jump right in. Jake in Plano, Texas. We've been to Plano.
We have.
We visited our friends at
Raising Cane's.
Raising Cane's out there in Plano. So in a full-point PPR league with two keepers in the round that they were drafted in, with a 2-year cap on keeping a player, who should he keep? You've got DeAndre Hopkins for a 3rd-round pick, Devontae Freeman for a 10th round, Thomas Rawls for a 16th, Jordy Nelson for a 16th, and the most obvious choice is David Johnson for a 16-round pick. Who joins DJ as his second keeper?
Well, yeah, clearly DJ is going to be the first keeper.
This is a tougher decision.
Yeah, the way that it breaks down to me is you have question mark guys that are extremely valuable picks. That would be Freeman, Rawls, and Jordy. Basically, you're giving up super late picks for whoever you want there. So, or you could take the guy that I think is the most considered reliable with DeAndre Hopkins at a 3rd round, which is still decent value. For me,
so your two are David Johnson and...
Mine would be David Johnson and Jordy Nelson.
All right. I will take David Johnson, and I will take DeAndre Hopkins.
I would go David Johnson and Jordy Nelson.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think if we're both in the wide receiver realm, you're getting a 13
A free
round
player.
of you're
Yeah.
getting a free player.
Well, and the thing
let
of
me
it
let me
is-
throw this out there though. David Johnson, while he is very high on our rankings and all the opportunity is before him, he still falls into the category of a question mark to
Sure.
some degree, like Rawls does, like Freeman does. I think he's actually very comparable to Freeman in the question mark area. You're putting two question marks together if you
Yeah.
put Jordy and DJ.
Oh, that
Yeah.
just makes an exclamation point.
I think there's
I was-
less question because it is the PPR league.
Yeah.
Let's say things fall apart somehow for David Johnson. He's still the pass catching guy for Arizona, and because it's only there's a 2-year cap on keeping guys. I'm not going to worry about longevity of Jordy Nelson. I'm just going with those two guys. Get the value and great players.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm right on the fence there too. So, Jeff in Oklahoma, I'm sure you get a gazillion questions. You are right. So thanks for considering mine. I'm in a 14-team keeper league and need to keep 3 guys. Plenty can change with injuries, but right now he has to declare keepers after week 2 of the preseason, so he's got some time.
All right.
My options are Beckham in the 1st, Rodgers in the 2nd, Robinson in the 4th, Yeldon in the 5th, and David Johnson, Jordy Nelson, and Kelvin Benjamin in the 15th.
Everyone getting Jordy late.
I really like
because it's waivers.
Johnson. Which other 2 guys would you keep and why? Well, David Johnson is locked in, obviously, for a 15th. Very similar to the guy in the previous question.
Yep, and very similar to the guy in the previous question. So is Jordy Nelson to me in the 15th, and then I would grab Allen Robinson.
Would you
a
take
second.
Robinson or Benjamin?
Why is Beckham completely out of consideration
No,
here?
no. I guess he's in the 1st, and it's not. I don't mind paying fair market for a guy like Odell Beckham.
David Johnson, Jordy Nelson, Odell Beckham Jr. That's who I would select.
And I would go David Johnson, Allen Robinson, and Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, I agree with Jason again, and it's gross.
It's funny because in both circumstances, I took the higher guaranteed wide receiver, Hopkins and ODB, and you both took the kind of mid-level or value.
Yeah, I think that Jordy Nelson is going to be a high-level player. I see him as that.
If you're drafting in the back of the 1st round, it doesn't talk you into Odell Beckham Jr. versus the front. Because
it makes a difference. It certainly
guess
makes a difference. If you know there's 3 great guys in there and you pick number 3, then sure you don't want to give that up. But I mean, it's more tempting.
It's still
the last
a trade.
question,
Robinson plus your 9th pick for ODB,
exactly.
basically. Dylan in Bloomington, Indiana. Great podcast, fantastic advice, good humor, lots of fun. There were 4 exclamation points in that sentence.
All
Oh,
right.
thank you. Appreciate
In those
that's
sentences.
8 question marks.
I am in a 12-team, 2-quarterback, 3-keeper league. Quarterbacks are obviously at a premium with top-tier QBs drafted in the first 3 rounds, so streaming is not a good option, and
No, it is
we
not.
understand that for sure in a 2-quarterback league. Plus, keepers acquired off trade or waivers are kept at ADP value based off of 1-quarterback league rankings.
Ooh.
So I'm keeping 3 quarterbacks basically for free, planning to load up on wide receivers and running backs in the first or early rounds. My first 2 quarterback keepers will be Mariota and Bortles.
The BB gun.
Would you prefer Bridgewater or RG3 as
Yeah,
your third
this is my
keeper?
kind of question. That is-
Bridgewater or RG3? And I'm going to tell you right now,
Other.
I pass.
Yes. The third guy.
They don't, but I do.
I completely understand. 2-quarterback leagues are very, very different than all the advice we give on 1-quarterback leagues.
I'll take Bridgewater.
You need to have them. I would take Bridgewater over
Give me the
RG3.
better team with a potential rookie wide receiver coming in, a maturing quarterback. RG3's just got nobody there.
I cannot fathom that there is not a running back or wide receiver that I would want more on my team. Look, you still need those guys. I realize it's a 2-quarterback league, but these 2 quarterbacks don't do hardly anything for you. You have to have someone else.
Answer the question,
I
Jason.
did. I said Bridgewater over
okay.
RG3.
Bridgewater or Matt Asiata?
Well, come on. I would take Bridgewater in that
All right.
case.
I'm also gonna take Bridgewater, I guess.
Oh, Mike in Connecticut. First of all, thank you guys for referring me to Pristine Auction.
Oh, booyah.
Oh, nice. I found a nice Hines Ward signed Gotham jersey from the movie The Dark Knight Rises. I had seen those.
I
had seen those.
That is sweet.
Yeah, that's really cool. You mix the pop culture with the
Where'd the footballs?
with. Is that another Hawaiian?
Yeah, I picked up a few
language?
things while I was over there.
I have, let's see, a few draft questions. Or as he said it, just a few of draft questions.
I think Mike snuck multiple questions in here.
All right, let me ask one of them. Should I trust Tony Romo as my starter going into the season?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Do you trust the slim down Eddie Lacy?
Yes.
Yes.
The pictures, they're not doctored. They're not photoshopped.
Not to
No.
my knowledge.
You don't think he's photoshopped all of these different ones to look like he's trim?
That's an elaborate ruse for
Now, I like the nickname you gave
Oh,
Eddie
yeah,
Lacy.
yeah.
Let's break it out.
Eddie Money. Eddie Money is doing work
Because he's in a contract year.
he's got to get paid. He wants 2 tickets to paradise.
And Mark Ingram got him. Mark Ingram taught, and you saw the picture with Ingram, Trent Richardson, who's now in the NFL.
Who
again,
is slimming down himself?
Eddie Lacy and their big brother,
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry.
Who could put Mark Ingram in his hands and just squish him up.
Derrick Henry
He's a
is
monster.
a monster.
He's a monster. I think he goes to Cleveland, and I think he dominates. That's my prediction.
I mean, Freedman, we talked about it a little bit, but with Hugh Jackson, you get the hammer that is Derrick Henry, and I'm interested.
How about Derrick Henry, 2nd round to the Cowboys with that offensive line, open up some big holes.
I'm far more interested in
Yeah.
that.
What would you do if he went to Cleveland, but it was Hugh Jackman that was the coach, as opposed to Hugh Jackson?
Wolverine?
Yeah, Wolverine himself.
Does Wolverine?
There's adamantium advantages to that situation.
I don't know if you can actually.
Could
share
Wolverine save
adamantium.
Cleveland? This is the question I'm asking you.
Wolverine could save everything.
Okay. I'm just making sure. Ryan in Austin, Texas. I need help deciding on my last keeper so I can repeat my #Foot Clan title next
Well
year.
done, sir.
You can keep Mike Evans in the 9th or Jordy Nelson in the 14th.
Oh no!
Is this the Jordy Nelson hour?
This
Everybody
is-
just they picked him up late in the draft. That's what all of our listeners did because we probably told them to.
That's wise. It was a wise move if you know your. League
I would
rules.
take Mike Evans in the 9th round. Thank you very much.
And I would take Jordy Nelson
Come
for the
on.
3rd time. I just don't think there is that big of a difference here.
There's not that big
between
of a
Jordy
difference
Nelson.
between a 9th round and a 14th round pick.
I give you that. I was literally wanting to pull up my specific rankings to see what the point differential was in my projections between those two guys to make sure that I am not wrong. So, Mike, who would you take? And I will tell you if those guys are far apart.
Oh man, that is brutal. I'm gonna go. I think
Obviously, it's a keeper league, guys.
yeah.
This is a keeper league with
all
Mike
right.
Evans.
Okay,
That's very.
then I would lean. If we're talking multiple years, Evans. If it's just
Does he say the
one-
scoring system?
If it's just 1 year, I might go
Standard
Jordy.
12 team.
Okay, well,
Yeah, Evans. I'll go Evans.
in standard, I have Jordy Nelson and Mike Evans. This is a cool thing you'll be able to see at our draft kit. I have them each with 189 points. They are tied in my rankings. But you do bring up a great point that this is a keeper league.
Yeah.
And year over
Got him.
year.
I got him on my
You're
side finally.
jacked for your point.
Well, no, I'm jacked because you guys have been against me the entire show.
Yeah, I have no problem if you want to take Mike Evans. I would probably still take Jordy Nelson.
So you've been against Jordy Nelson then, and
No.
using that logic.
I just don't think he's as guaranteed. I'm not against him at all. I think the odds, I would put the odds in his favor to be great. But, yeah, them being in his favor does not mean that they're as high as Hopkins, Odell Beckham Jr., or in this case, Mike Evans.
That's fair.
I think all three of those situations, you had an extreme value with David Johnson in the two previous ones. So I take my extreme value and I take my guarantee and I put him in, on my team and I'm happy.
Sure.
Thomas in Las Vegas says he's in a 12-team PPR league. He traded Mike Evans and Jay Cutler for Adrian Peterson and Marcus Mariota.
Okay, so I
All
think
right.
they're asking who got the better trade.
He got his first and second 2016 round picks as well.
Oh my goodness.
You did, my
You know,
friend.
That kind of puts it over the edge there.
Well, it was probably over the edge to me anyway. I like Mariota more than Cutler, and I like Peterson more than Evans, although it's a PPR league.
not in a PPR dynasty. No, but
No,
Evans,
not in a dynasty. I
Evans
think
by
it's in your
far.
favor, though, with the first and second round picks.
Yeah, first and second round picks makes it in your favor.
It's close, I guess.
Assuming-
Dynasty PPR, you got your rookie draft pick. No, I like it in your favor.
as long as those are decently high picks.
So are you on the fence?
Yeah, I'm on. Well, because Evans, man, and I love Evans in Dynasty.
He's great, but
Well,
so
what
is,
about
I
Mariota in
was going to
Dynasty?
say Mariota's
Yeah,
great.
I don't see. I like him. I just don't see him as a top 3 quarterback. I mean, I think he'll be a quarterback 1 for a decent amount of time, but I don't see it translating to you're like he's an elite. He's Aaron Rodgers. He's Cam Newton.
He doesn't have to be in this trade for it to be more beneficial for him, does it? For Thomas?
Giving up a young wide receiver.
Here's what I like about it. This is the way that I can look at it. Your team improved this next year, okay? And so it was trading for now to run after that championship at the expense of your future, except you didn't completely do the expense of your future because of those first and second round picks. You got that back. So you're good this year. You're good in the future. I like it for you.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's go to Ricardo in Sacramento here. He's stuck between choosing his keeper. He has it narrowed down to Allen Robinson and Deion Lewis. He has some studs, but he could probably get them for the same high dollar amount as prior years. Both are pretty cheap. Allen Robinson, $5, or Deion Lewis for $0.
The Tom Brady news makes this an easy call to me. I worry about Deion Lewis without Tom Brady there. He is the pass-catching back, so I'm going to go – not that Deion Lewis is – not that I'm not going to draft him or I think he's going to be bad by any means, but if it was a close call beforehand, I'm going to go with Allen Robinson.
Do you have any leanings, any thoughts toward maybe somehow – the Brady suspension helps Lewis? Is Lewis a safety valve who's just going to get peppered with targets from Garoppolo?
Far too
handsome man.
Far too speculative to make fantasy decisions on either direction with Deion Lewis. It pays no mind for me in this situation, considering the Brady suspension at all. It's Allen Robinson regardless. I have no concern.
Agree. I'm just talking in general for Lewis.
But yeah, with Lewis, put it this way. Are you the news came out today that Brady's going to lose 4 games. We're going to go back and adjust Brady, adjust our stats on guys. If you were to adjust Deion Lewis, are you leaving him completely
I'm leaving
the same?
him 100% the same.
Okay. I will probably take him.
I will not affect him at all. I mean, we saw who am I thinking of? Javorius Allen with 13 targets to a backup quarterback in Baltimore. I don't have enough data to speculate on that. I know it's not good for the Patriots as a whole necessarily. But for Lewis, who's coming off an injury and all these other variables, I'm just leaving him alone for now. So that's just my take. That's my take. So
either way, I'm taking Robinson in that situation.
All right. So Luke in North Augusta said 32-team dynasty league. Not every day you run into those, but you do hear about
the reality sports online type of stuff.
Should he trade his 101?
Okay.
His which is going to be Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah.
His 110. And a 2017 first-rounder for Todd Gurley right now. And right now his backs are Langford and Hyde.
Absolutely not. So that's easy. That's 100% no for me.
That is not 100%
too much.
no.
It's too much for me. I'm a no.
I do think because it is a full PPR, Todd Gurley is not necessarily a pass-catching back where Ezekiel Elliott could be. So, yeah, let's not do it, Luke.
Yeah. All right, so that does it for today's show. I want everyone who is listening to pay attention to this. If you want to hear some predictions about the draft, you're going to want to get onto the podcast early on Thursday because we're going to have that up. It'll be up very early. You'll have it for your commute on Thursday, but make sure you listen that day because you'll hear all the predictions. Obviously, I'm going to get them, most of them right. Jason will get a couple accidentally right, and Mike will
number
get
1.
Very few correct. But last year when we did this, we talked a lot about David Johnson and certain players that we really liked. So I think it'll be a fun. The energy for the show on Thursday is going to be incredible because we will be just moments.
We will be
seconds from the draft,
actually screaming
the whole
show.
The whole show.
I love the draft.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
Mike always comes up with something fun for the draft.
Just wait for the maybe this will be a nice surprise intro like we had last year.
Yeah, we'll see. Probably not. But we've got a good Thursday show for you. Make sure you stay tuned for the show after the show. After we're done here, that is over on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Check out the draft kit, ultimatedraftkit.com. We just released it, and you can save some money before June 1st if you want to grab it. It's really pretty cheap compared to other draft kits you get out there, and we have a lot more content in it. So I think you'll really enjoy that, and that does it for the show.
That it does.
You all right, Jason?
I'm just gearing up for the draft.
With the sickness?
Down with the sickness. Nope.
You sound just like him.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers.